Before we start, let me give a quick promo to our Instagram account. We regularly post exclusive content, stories, quizzes, and soon we'll be giving away merch. So make sure you head over there right now and give us a follow. There's been a ton of talk about the possibility of a no-deal Brexit in recent days. People are speculating how recent events will impact the likelihood of a no deal, and even May is saying that since her deal was rejected, no Brexit is more likely than the UK leaving without a deal. A lot of the time when people talk about a no-deal Brexit, the discussion is based around how much of a disaster it will be. The scale goes from huge disaster to the biggest disaster known to man. There's very little talk about how a no-deal Brexit could actually be a good thing for the UK. TLDR strives to be an impartial news source, and yet even we have generally been negative about a no-deal Brexit, discussing all of the difficulties that the UK could face if they fail to reach a deal. That's because based on our research and the opinions of experts, the consensus is that immediately after a no-deal Brexit, the UK will be worse off. However, there are people who believe that there are some upsides, especially in the long term. So we want to take this video to share their point, and make a defence of no-deal Brexit. To do this, we consulted with our audience, asking supporters of a no-deal Brexit to email us, letting us know why they liked the idea. We got hundreds of emails, and we read through all of them to help formulate this video. Thank you to everyone who emailed us. Your opinions really did help with this. As we discussed in our video What Happens After a No-Deal Brexit, the immediate aftermath of a no deal could be difficult for the UK. There's a huge number of reasons why the UK may struggle in the first few months after a no-deal Brexit. And that's not something most of the people who emailed us shied away from. In fact, a majority of people acknowledged that they thought there would be some difficulties in the short term, but for a variety of reasons, they believe that in the longer term, the sacrifice will be worth it. I don't want to go into too many of the difficulties the UK could face, because we have a whole video about that, but here's just a flavour of what could happen. Overnight, the UK would go from having a close trading relationship with the EU to operating under WTO rules, meaning the EU would begin to place tariffs, restrictions and quotas on UK goods and vice versa. The UK could struggle to import vital supplies such as medicine and food. EU and UK citizens could immediately lose the right to live and work in each other's countries. The number of flights between the UK and EU would be capped, and airlines would be forced to cancel flights. New customs checks would cause delays and queues at the UK-EU border. So lots of Brexiteers have been arguing that a no-deal Brexit won't actually cause any logistical problems, and everything will just carry on basically as it was, save for a few documentation checks here and there. You can sort of see why. HMRC has said that they wouldn't need any more checks within the UK in the event of a no-deal Brexit, and recently, the president of Calais port said that they wouldn't be performing any more checks either. You're probably asking, what about all those customs checks everyone talks about? What about the Irish border issue? Are these all made up problems part of Project Fear? Well, maybe not. HMRC slightly qualified their position on this. They've said that they'll need some 5,300 extra civil servants in the event of a no deal, as well as an additional £250 million a year to help it all go smoothly, and that their optimism relies on EU member states agreeing to relaxed regulatory checks immediately after a no deal. When asked whether or not this is likely to happen, HMRC Permanent Secretary John Thompson said, "I don't know if that's realistic. I literally have no idea. I can't read the mind of the President of France." Even more worryingly, a new customs declaration system for a no-deal Brexit was supposed to be rolled out in January, and now it's been pushed back to March. The President of Calais has also qualified their optimism, but actually what he meant was that there'd be no extra regulatory checks on manufacturing, but there would still be checks on customs declarations, which UK businesses currently don't need to provide. The Road Haulage Association has estimated that these checks will take an extra 4 minutes per lorry. While this might not sound much, a University College London report for the Department of Transport in 2017 found that even an extra 80-second delay would result in total failure on UK roads. The UK government has also recently been preparing for a no-deal Brexit, but these preparations haven't gone well either. The government awarded a £14 million contract to Seabourn Freight to keep supply chains flowing in the event of a no-deal Brexit. Seabourn Freight, it turns out, don't actually own any ferries, and they've literally copied their terms and conditions from a takeaway delivery site, with one part advising customers to check their goods before agreeing to pay for any meal. The Department of Transport also tried to simulate a traffic jam in Kent, but only about 90 of the 150 drivers turned up, just 1% of the daily Dover traffic. You're probably thinking that this sounds like more Project Fear, but keep in mind that even most Brexiteers like Dominic Raab accept that a no-deal Brexit would bring short-term disruption. We're not saying that any of this would definitely happen. There's obviously a chance that EU countries and the UK could make sensible concessions to help a no-deal Brexit go smoothly, but given how well negotiations have gone in these past years, that doesn't look at all likely. So with all these downsides immediately after a no-deal Brexit, why is it that some people still support the move? Well, under a no-deal Brexit, the UK would immediately lose all of the EU's trade deals with other nations. The EU has a lot of trade deals, 65 deals in fact. However, it's the EU who negotiated these deals, not the UK. So supporters of a no-deal Brexit say that the UK will be better off if it was able to negotiate its own deals. Currently, every EU trade deal must be agreed to by all 28 EU member states. Following a no-deal Brexit, the UK would have a greater level of control over the deal it accepts, and it could tailor the deal to suit the UK economy specifically, rather than being designed to benefit the EU economy as a whole. The UK would also be able to control who the deals were with. Remember I said earlier that the EU has 65 trade deals? While that's an impressive number, that list doesn't include 8 of the top 20 countries by GDP, although the EU is in negotiations with most of these countries. The hope is that if Britain's on its own, then it will be able to be more nimble and negotiate better deals for the UK. Those in favour especially like pointing to the US, where President Trump seems very keen on striking a trade deal with the UK. He's also said that if the UK were to agree to May's deal, it would kill the chances of a deal with the US. So he's certainly keen on the possibility of a no-deal Brexit. If you're interested in hearing more about a potential US-UK trade deal, comment below and like this video to let us know. A number of people have also pointed to Kanzuk International, an organisation which is trying to push for a trade deal between Canada, New Zealand, Australia and the UK. Over 250,000 people have signed a Change.org petition supporting the move. But as we all know, Change.org petitions don't always have the highest of success rates. It's also easy to say that you can get a bunch of great deals done quickly, but actually doing it is quite a different thing. While some people criticise the speed and efficiency of the EU's deal making, it does hold a lot of clout that the UK would lack when alone. Even without the UK, the EU's economy is still 7 times bigger than the UK's by GDP, meaning countries are much more likely to pay attention to the big bloc than to an independent nation. Sure, the UK is still an important economic force, but considering how long it takes to create trade deals, it's possible that the deals reached won't justify the pain caused in their interim. The border has always been a big motivator for those who support Brexit. They argue that with a no-deal Brexit, the UK could gain greater control over their borders. One viewer emailed us to say that they think this could be a major advantage, as we can control who and what comes through our borders, and decide what can happen for those people. If they are skilled enough, they can stay and continue to contribute to the UK. The UK will definitely get greater control of its borders after leaving the EU single market and ditching the freedoms of movement that come with it. There's been a lot of things said about borders after Brexit, so I don't want to stick on this point for too long, but it's worth considering how important this issue actually is. To some people, the border issue is enough to justify the difficulties we'll face in the short and maybe even long term. But it's worth considering all of the benefits that EU nationals bring to the UK, and that in reality, the UK's economy relies on these people. Even after Brexit, the UK will continue to let in a huge number of EU nationals at all skill levels to fill gaps in the UK's workforce. The UK won't just be letting in high-skilled migrants as some people might like to think. The UK's economy needs low-skilled migrants to fill gaps. There will be a change to border controls, the question is how much you think it matters. A number of people are in favour of a no-deal Brexit because they believe it's the truest form of Brexit, and it's the best way to democratically deliver the Brexit people voted for back in 2016. One email we received said, "The most important thing here is to protect and honour true democracy. We were asked to make a decision in the referendum. The people made a decision, and it has to be respected whatever the consequences. Defending Britain's democracy is important, and it wouldn't be good if the UK set a precedent for going back on democratic votes. Even though there's an argument that the first referendum was only advisory and that voters were lied to, it's risky to ignore the vote. It's very important for a healthy democracy that majority rules and democratic results are followed. However, this is an argument for Brexit and against the second referendum, not in favour of a no-deal Brexit. No matter what some people like to claim, not everyone who voted for Brexit supports a no-deal Brexit. Not even everyone campaigning for Brexit wanted a no-deal Brexit. There's loads of examples of Leave campaigners who aren't in favour of a no deal. Prominent Conservative MP and vocal supporter of Leave, Daniel Hannan, said during the campaign, "Absolutely nobody is talking about threatening our place in the single market. Owen Paterson, a Tory MP and another key Vote Leave campaigner, claimed something similar, remarking only a madman would actually leave the single market. A number of people who emailed us were from other EU countries. A few of these people commented that the UK leaving without a deal could actually be good for the EU. Their argument that the UK crashing out would help set an example to protect the EU for the future. This point was put clearly by one viewer who said, Britain will be way worse off than it is in the EU, that's obvious. But if any country can take that blow without a hit to the global economy, it's Britain, while it's going to set a very appalling example to other EU countries to follow. So there's a big incentive for the 27 other countries to let Britain crash and burn really hard, to become a good example of a suicidal referendum. Some also pointed out that Britain already had a pretty good deal with the EU, pointing to the number of special terms and opt-outs the UK had, with one person saying, Britain already has the best EU membership deal of all 28 members. Opt-outs, rebate, veto rights, you name it. Britain has caused a lot of trouble in the EU in recent years, and many EU members think that the UK is creating a lot of fuss, considering the great deal they already have. As such, some support a hard Brexit, as it gets the UK out of the picture and allows them to pull together and improve the Union. That being said, the EU's economy could be pretty seriously affected by a no-deal Brexit. We're considering making a video discussing how a no-deal Brexit would affect the EU. Like this video and comment below if you want to see that come out soon. The final point I want to touch on is sovereignty. There's been a lot of talk about taking back control and regaining Britain's sovereignty in recent years. I mean, it was written on the side of a bus after all. A lot of people object to the control that the EU has over UK laws, and they want to see British politicians controlling how the UK works. Leaving the EU without a deal cuts all ties. The UK would no longer be beholden to any EU institution, and would be free to do whatever it pleased. To many people who support a no-deal Brexit, this issue is worth all of the problems. One commenter put it simply, how much economic pain is too much to fight for your sovereignty? That's a completely subjective question, and it's up to you to decide where the line is drawn. But I'd like to make a couple of counterpoints for balance. Firstly, the UK has a lot more control than many media outlets might want you to think, and the influence of unelected EU officials is generally less sinister than it's made to sound. On top of this, most of the time the UK agrees with the EU's laws and rulings. In fact, the vast majority of times. The UK has voted in favour of 95% of EU laws, and only against 2%. So it's not exactly like the UK hates the majority of laws the EU are passing. Before we finish, I want to say another thank you to everyone who contributed to this video. Even if I didn't quote you, I read every email and you helped shape the arguments involved. I'd also be interested to hear which side of the line you fall on. Is no deal a great opportunity for the UK, or does it spell disaster? Let us know what you think in the comments below. Also, make sure you subscribe to TLDR News and follow us across all of the different social platforms.